Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another I100%ed video. Today, it's the big one. We've been waiting for this. We've been doing a lot of shorter games lately, so now it's time for I100%ed The Outer Worlds. So we're specifically playing the Spacer's Choice Edition, which basically just raises the player level cap and adds in the 2 DLCs that the game has automatically. So what is The Outer Worlds? The Outer Worlds is a first-person RPG shooter, a lot like the Fallout games, which makes a lot of sense, because it was developed by Obsidian and published by Private Division, and that Obsidian team was made up of a lot of the original Fallout creators, as well as the developers of Fallout New Vegas. So that's kind of good and bad because this game had really high expectations when it came out, so let's see if it delivers on those. This game has 68 total achievements, so this is the biggest game that I have achievement hunted on the channel up to this point, and it's also the biggest editing project that I've ever done. So this has been taking quite a while to get done and finished and out there, so I hope you enjoy, and I hope you have some understanding of why the recent games we've been 100%ing have been on a little bit of the shorter side. So without further ado, I hope you really enjoy watching me 100% The Outer Worlds Spacer's Choice Edition. The Outer Worlds takes place in the distant Halcyon galaxy, and we begin with Dr. Phineas Wells breaking into a ship called the Last Hope, which was transporting humans from Earth to the galaxy to begin the colonization process. The people aboard the Hope were some of Earth's greatest minds that were being sent out to begin this colonization process, but they've been lost in cryosleep for many years, so Phineas Wells is trying to free us, but he only manages to free one person. Then we go into a little bit of the classic Fallout character creation menu here. We have different attributes that we can change. Here you can see what we end up going with for this first playthrough. And we have different abilities that we can modify as well, and dialogue skills are king here in Fallout games, as I've learned. We also get to pick an aptitude, which is like our former job. We pick toss ball mascot. This part doesn't really matter. But then we get into the actual character creator screen. So this, I'm not normally one of these character creator people. I'm not super great at it. But if you've watched some of the other stuff that I've done on Twitch, you might know that I always try to make one character in particular in recent years when I've been doing character creation stuff like this. And I actually think I did pretty well this time. We've created George Costanza, and I've thrown an image in here so that you can see. That's pretty close. I mean, you gotta give it up to the boy. Come on. After freeing us from our cryosleep, Dr. Wells has to flee back to his ship to escape the oncoming onslaught that's coming for him, and he flees back to his orbital space lab out in the galaxy. So the thing about Wells is he is a wanted criminal by the board in this game. We'll get to that in a second, and so he needs to retreat. Then we get a little cutscene where he is telling us the basic plot of the story. So, this is an alternate reality where William McKinley was never assassinated and Theodore Roosevelt never took power as US president, so the mega corporations weren't broken up in the United States during the early 1900s, so a couple mega corporations have taken over and become the governing body of this colony, and they see over the colony going by the name The Board. Wells gives us the task of trying to go throughout the colony and finding supplies he needs to help unfreeze the other members of the Hope, and we need to meet a guy named Alex Hawthorne on the ground. And we land on the first planet that we're going to visit here, and we find that we have crushed Alex Hawthorne with our landing gear. But that's okay, we get over it pretty quick because we earn our first achievement, Welcome to Halcyon, as soon as we land and start the game. We finesse a local guard into giving us our first gun, and he keeps talking about something called Spacer's Choice, which will be the first of the corporations that we meet and we'll get to deal with. The dethralling process has given us some powers here where we can slow down time, but I don't really start using that until a little bit later in the game. As we get our first glimpse of the ship that we've been trying to reach and start to approach it, we get intercepted by some members of the local military who tell us there are some bandits roaming about that are going to try to kill us if we go any further. We learn these guards are also part of Spacer's Choice, and that'll be a trend going forward, But we managed to convince them to go do our work for us and try to take out the bandits that were blocking us, but unfortunately it's 2 of them and many more bandits, so they get eliminated pretty quickly, and we get to loot their corpses and take out the remaining bandits without too much issue. With all those bandits out of the way, we can approach the ship called the Unreliable for the first time and go inside. So inside the ship we meet the navigational computer called Ada, who assists us in moving throughout the different planets in the galaxy. So Ada was programmed to only respond to Alex Hawthorne, but now that he is gone and we've taken over his post, we convince her that she should work with us. But it can never be quite that easy because her power regulator is unfortunately damaged, and we're going to need to go into the nearby town and try to find a new one. Once we exit the conversation with Ada, we get our first level up of the game. So leveling up is a lot like other Fallout games where we can pick from a number of perks. A lot of these are very helpful. A couple of them are not super great, but we can also pick our skill upgrades that we want, and as always, dialogue and lockpicking are key here. Back in the open world, we get our first glimpse at what life is like under these large corporations, where even the town grave sites are rented to you and not fully owned. Moving slightly past Graveyard Man, we find ourselves in the first city of the game called Edgewater. Edgewater's main feature is a Saltuna plant and is extremely dominated by corporate oversight. We get another glimpse at what life is like in the city when we see that one of the buildings around town has been converted to be absolutely chock full of the city's sick and dying population. I managed to make my way through the city into the Saltuna plant and find the power regulator, but I can't quite manage to pull it out while the machine is on. So we still need that power regulator, and we know the best way to find that is to go to the top, so we talk to the town boss, Reed Thompson. He tells us that we can't take his power regulator, but there might be another one somewhere out in the nearby area that we could take. Quite a few of the city's former factory workers have left the city due to the corporate oversight and are now living out at the botanical labs under the guidance of someone named Adelaide. They have a power regulator as well, so if we can divert the power from their base to the city, then maybe the workers will be willing to come back to their posts. So sounds like a great plan, but we don't really trust this guy. The town mechanic Parvati comes with us as our first companion, and we get an achievement to boot. The Outer Worlds allows you to have up to 2 companions in your party at any given time, and because Parvati is the first one the game has given to me, she is definitely going to be with me through the entire rest of the game. This is pretty much how I play everything. It happened with every starter Pokemon there's ever been, it happened with Boone in Fallout New Vegas, and it happened with Shadowheart in Baldur's Gate 3. But it's Outer Worlds time, so friendship ended with all of those guys, and now Parvati is my best friend. Speaking of companions, we actually get our second one immediately after meeting Parvati, Vicar Max. He doesn't stick in the party with us for quite as long, but he is there. After we make our way across the map, we eventually come across the botanical labs, and we do a couple side quests here before we finally get in front of the leader of the area, Adelaide McDevitt. Essentially, this is the other option for the first big main story division here. We can choose to go to the power plant and direct the power to the city, or out here to the botanical lab in the deserters. And then we take the power regulator from the other place, we plug it into our ship, and we're good to head off to another planet. So really, this is kind of, you know, it's a little gray, but it's pretty black and white as far as the corporations are bad and the people out here struggling are good. So now we have a pretty quick trip back to the power plant. I had actually cleared it out before I made it to the botanical lab, so easy enough to go back and flip a couple switches. And now we need to make our choice. We need to make both choices for achievements, but we go with the botanical labs first. The achievements don't unlock until late game, so we can't just reset and get them both at once here. But we go back to Edgewater anyway, and we see that the power is in fact out. Everything is completely sealed. But that's kind of something we have to live with, as we need to go get our power regulator from underneath the Saltuna factory. With power regulator in hand, we can run back to our ship, pop it into the system because it's just that easy, and get our third achievement, Ticket to Anywhere. And it really is a ticket to anywhere because the Unreliable, our ship, takes off the ground, and now we're in space, so we can go a number of places. Once we're in space, we get a message from the doctor who tells us we need to go to a place called Stellar Bay, But first we need to get a key to be able to access the planet, so we need to make a quick stop onto the ship called the Groundbreaker. We stop by our new bedroom on the ship and we find an item called the Holographic Shroud, which projects a hologram onto us to allow us to sneak into certain areas where we have a disguise. And we get some emails about how a relationship formed between the former captain of the ship and a guy on the Groundbreaker where we're heading. And this was a kind of a disappointment for me. I thought there was going to be some subterfuge with that disguise item we just picked up, but that's not quite how it went. But it's okay. The navigation system in this game is pretty easy. You basically just click on the planet that you want to go to. But as you can see, a lot of them are locked from the start here, so we need to get different keys that allow us to land on different planets. We stop by the doctor's lab, and nothing too important here. We find the first of the science weapons. There's a couple of these scattered throughout the map, but they're not super important except for a couple of achievements later, so worth mentioning. After we leave the doctor's lab, we head over to Groundbreaker. So Groundbreaker is essentially the other ship that was carrying passengers in addition to the ship that we were on that got lost in space. So this is kind of a central place. A lot of shops are set up, and we get a lot of side quests here, as well as some of the main board quests. Speaking of side quests, we meet up with Lilia Hagen and get introduced to one of the board members who we haven't met yet. So she is from the organization Sublight, and they have a couple side quests for us to do, but unfortunately we don't have a key to get into the planet where she has the quest for us at first, so we're going to need to go find a way to obtain that, and then we can work on that a little bit later. The next important character we meet is Junlei Tennyson, and she is the chief engineer on the Groundbreaker. She gives us a quest, but it's not super important. The main thing here is setting up that all of our companions have little side quests. Well, they're pretty big actually, but we'll get into those more later. This one's just setting up Parvati's. The next important character we meet up with is Udom Bedford. This guy is essentially just a corporate Scrooge working for the board, and this is the guy that I thought we were going to do the corporate espionage stuff with earlier, but that didn't happen. We just walk up and talk to him. Interestingly enough, this is where we could start the turn if we wanted to do the kind of bad path siding with the corporations in this game, but we don't do that in our first playthrough. Stick with me here, we're almost through the list of characters that are only important for about 10% of this game. Final one we meet up with is Gladys. So Gladys is kind of an illegal arms dealer, but really all goods, and she has the nav key that we need to get into Stellar Bay. But unfortunately it's priced pretty high because they're an illegal item, so it's hard to get. So she gives us a side quest we can take on to earn the money and get that key, so we're going to need to make a quick little pit stop over on another planet before we can come back and get that nav key sorted. When we return to our ship, we find a kind of Han Solo type waiting for us. His name's Felix, and he's going to be sticking with us for the rest of the journey. He's another one of our companions, but we don't really take him out much. We learn that Parvati is interested in pursuing Junlei, but she's asexual, so she's kind of going through some issues with that, and it doesn't really matter, but I just thought it was nice representation. We get another quick call from the doctor who tells us we need to find some chemicals, but he doesn't really know where to look, so we need to go to Stellar Bay and talk to an information broker named Hiram who lives up on a big mountain or something. But we still can't get into Stellar Bay, as we've established based on not having the key to get in, so we still need to go do that other side quest first. At this point in the game, our navigation system invites us to view an Aetherwave kind of TV show thing that I actually didn't realize was part of one of the DLCs, Murder on Eridanos. So basically, we get the introduction to the first DLC here. Essentially, there's a pop culture figure named Halcyon Helen who was doing an advertising campaign, but she was murdered, so we are being asked to come in and investigate the murder. We need to travel to this planet that's on the other side of the galaxy, and yeah, we need to, classic murder mystery, investigate, find witnesses, all the things like that. But it's important that we talk about it here because we actually unlock an achievement for it as well. Now it's time to get back into the real side quest. We're actually heading back to the same planet we were on last time, but now we're going to another landing pad called Roseway. So basically the story here is there's like a super secret science lab that's been overrun by monsters, and we need to go find the missing recipe that actually turns out to just be toothpaste. And honestly, this whole planet's kind of side quest, and I would skip it, but we actually get a couple achievements here, so we kind of have to leave it in. It's not super important to the story though. We also get introduced to the flaw system for the first time on this planet. Essentially, once you've taken a lot of the same kind of damage, you can take a permanent debuff to get 1 perk point, and we need to do this for an achievement later. Once we track down the missing formula, we find the thief and actually use our 30th skill check of the game to get the recipe back, which gives us another achievement for using that many skill checks. Here we unlock an achievement on accident. We're recruiting Ellie, who is going to be the next companion in our party, who actually sticks with us for a good portion of the game, but while doing that we also get over 75% rep with 3 different factions, which gives us another achievement. For some reason, when I went to bring back the toothpaste recipe, it unlocked when I went into the city instead of talking to the scientist, but whatever, I guess. Right after that, we get the second to last member of our companions. It's a robot named Sam, and Sam's whole side quest was collecting the parts to get him up and running, so I never actually used him in the game. With the toothpaste side quest done, we can finally afford to pick up our new Stellar Bay nav key, and so we take our ship over to Monarch, and we get the achievement Something Fishy for landing in Stellar Bay. So what's the deal with Stellar Bay? Why was it so hard to get here? Why do we need to do that whole side quest and pay all that money for a key to get in? Basically, a few years back, Stellar Bay was disconnected from the rest of the board, so the board is no longer overseeing them, but they don't want people to get out to that planet because they've basically just been disbarred from the rest of the galaxy, and this guy Sanjar is running the country, but he needs a little bit of help. Surprise, surprise, this place also has some dissidents who have moved out to live on their own, but Sanjar doesn't necessarily want us to deal with them. He just wants us to help him get reinstated by the board and be ruling with the rest of the corporations. So this is another place where we're going to get a split in choices here, but first Sanjar has a little bit of a mission for us to go find something called the Bolt 52. And if you thought this area was going to be a little bit light on side quests, I'm sorry to disappoint, because there are an absolute ton to get through in this and pretty much every other area in the game as well. We unlock achievement number 9 for selling 10,000 gold worth of items to vendors, which, not a surprise, I pick up everything. Now it's basically time for us to start heading out into the wilds of the planet here and start getting some progress done on the main quest. But first we need to make one more quick stop in the city. The doctor told us that we need to meet up with someone named Nyoka who could guide us to the information broker we need to find out in the wilds, and we find her, and she happens to be the final of the companions that we can recruit. And right after we talk to her, our party's full, so she gets sent back to the ship, but then we unlock the achievement for having all of the companions collected. Look at that. After we travel for a little bit, we come across a small town called Amber Heights, so this is obviously where those deserters live. These are the only people in the galaxy that are completely free of oversight from the board, so they celebrate that, and they're overseen by 2 people named Graham and Zora, who we'll get to talk to in just a minute. Immediately upon talking to Graham and Zora, we start to see some differences. They are currently looking to get a printing press set up so they can kind of get the word out about their community, but they have a little bit of extra funds, and Graham wants to spend that on ammunition while Zora wants to spend it on supplies. So while we make the trip out, we get to make the decision. While we're walking over to go collect those supplies, we take enough unique damage that we get offered our 3rd flaw of the game, which of course we take in exchange for the perk, and we unlock the achievement Flawed Hero. Once we finally make our way to the contact, we pick up the printing press supplies, and we decide to go with the Zora route of picking up regular health and medical supplies instead of more ammunition. When we return to drop off the parts, we learn that Graham has inadvertently gotten some of their people killed by spreading their resources too thin with his obsession with trying to get the printing press up. But we can't really focus on that for too long because we need to get out there and meet some people named the Van Noys to get it set up. We make it out over there and find that the Van Noys are in fact still alive, and we get the printing press up and running without too much trouble. I ran back to Amber Heights to report back to Graham and Zora that we've got the printing press up and running, but we're going to take a little bit of a pause on this mission because they don't want to draw too much attention to us now that the word is getting out about them trying to make a play for more people. As we're walking out, Zora stops us and tells us about a couple of years ago there was an event where some pirates broke into Amber Heights and massacred a bunch of the people that lived here, and Graham took it really hard. and she has a potential lead on figuring out who could have let them into Amber Heights, because it must have been somebody that already lived there. So she gives us this little side quest, and this will be the last we see of this place for a little bit. Back out in the wildlands, we kill a bigger than normal mega creature, and we get an achievement for doing so. Another feature of the holographic shroud that we talked about earlier is that you have up to 3 chances to get caught with the disguise, where you can charisma your way out of it. So you get 3, and then they'll come catch you like you would normally get if you were breaking in somewhere. And if you use all 3 of your chances, you happen to unlock an achievement for doing that, which we do here talking to this patrolling robot. Surprise, we're back at Amber Heights again. We found the information Zora was looking for, and we find out that Graham was in fact the one that let the pirates into Amber Heights. So we need to deal with that somehow, but we're going to let Zora think about it for a minute. While we were out, we also found the Bolt 52 Sanjar was looking for, and when he was talking about it before, it sounded like he was mentioning a weapon we were looking for, but it actually turns out it's just a form that he wants to submit to be reinstated by the board. So a little less fun there. Now that all that's done, we can finally start making a little bit more progress on the main story, and we finally make our way to Devil's Peak. Once we're finished fighting our way all the way up to the top of the peak, we finally get to meet the information broker we've been looking for this whole time, Hiram Blythe. So talking to Hiram, we first unlock an achievement called Pirate Radio for reaching him basically, and then he has one more task for us. We need to go outside on the balcony and activate a kind of cell tower thing so that he can keep his broadcast going. I headed out onto the balcony and basically just flipped a lever that allowed the broadcast to start back up, but while we were waiting for the broadcast to get going, we see that a ship is crashing out of the atmosphere, and it looks like one of the board's gunships that was guarding the planet. So then we get a call from both Sanjar and Graham onto Hiram's secret line here, and of course, this is the point where we get the choice. We can go collect the items and give them to Graham or to Sanjar. One cool thing about combat in this game is that you can do these special combo attacks with your companion that do increased damage, and once you get 50 enemy kills with those, you get the achievement, Got Your Back. The weapons in this game also have elemental effects, and once you kill an enemy with all 5 of them on at once, you get the achievement Elemental Maelstrom. Not sure why I got it here, but I did. After a pretty long trip around the outskirts of the planet, we finally managed to find the targeting module, and we get the choice of who to give it to once and for all. So here we are at another one of the game's big branching story choices. But unlike the first one, we can actually get both achievements right here, and we don't have to completely reload. We just have to do a quick save and then do each side of the mission. But this one is a little bit interesting because we find out that there's actually a way that we can get the 2 factions to work together, but Sanjar will only work with Zora. So we'll remember that later, because first we're going to do the side of the mission where we just give the module to Sanjar, and basically here we go in with the MSI troops to eliminate the Iconoclasts, and then at the end we get a final showdown with Graham and Zora, but that fight's actually pretty easy. But then we unlock our achievement, Monarch Abides. That's one achievement down, but the other one isn't as simple as just giving it to Graham. We actually need to do the ending where we align the 2 factions. So Zora has decided that with the recent development about Graham betraying the group, that she has decided that she's going to run things with our support. So we need to go upstairs, and unfortunately Graham won't just step down, so we have to put him down. We get our 50th melee kill with the Toss Ball melee weapon and get the achievement Toss Ball All-Star. And after that we only have one task left. Basically we get Sanjar and Zora in one room, we have them talk over the agreement that they make, and we kind of pick sides here and there, but it doesn't really seem like it matters whose side we take, and eventually we unlock the achievement Peace in Our Time for getting them to agree and work together. With all that out of the way, we can return to Dr. Phineas Wells here, and we get some more information, in fact the information that we just got for him, from Hiram. So he tells us that the nation's minister, Minister Clark, has been procuring some large amounts of some pretty exclusive chemicals, and so we need to go to a planet called Byzantium to investigate this and eventually steal the chemicals, because these chemicals are going to be very, very important for the process of reviving the Hope's colonists. After talking to the doctor, we return to our ship and find that UPS has delivered a little package for us. So when we take a look at the package, we see that it's a mysterious box that gives us the achievement Peril at hand. So this is all related to the second of the game's DLCs, Peril on Gorgon, and we'll get more into this later, but basically there's a guy named Lucky Montoya who was sent out to solve some sort of mystery that we don't really know about yet, but he is fearing for his life, and he decides to send his good pal Hawthorne a message about it. At this point in the game, we have all of the companion characters unlocked, so we can begin to start working through the companion quests. So there's 6 of them, and then Sam's you finish by unlocking him, so 5 more that we need to complete. I'm only going to show this first one and then Pavarti's because it was my favorite, but basically we just do some simple stuff, solve some problems, figure out some story stuff for the characters. But I don't really care about a lot of the side characters in this one, so, you know, it's okay, but nothing super special. But then at the end, once we've completed Felix's mission here, it's the first one that I did, we actually unlock the achievement, Anything for a Friend. We get the achievement Poor Sportsmanship for shooting 30 different enemies in the groin during tactical time dilation, and then it's time to finally ship off and head to Terra 2 in Byzantium, where we'll earn the achievement Paradise Found for entering Byzantium's landing port. We meet up with one of Phineas's contacts who tells us the minister is actually on house arrest, so we'll need to break into a pretty heavily guarded place to get to him. So now we're in Byzantium. This is the capital city. It's where all of the government buildings are, all of the officials for the government, and the richest people in the society. And this is a big opportunity for a small town guy like us, because as soon as we step off the ship, we get recognized by the one and only Maverick Johnson, who has a big opportunity for us to make a movie with Odeon Pictures. So of course we show up and we read a couple lines with the actors, but unfortunately things don't seem to work out for us, but we do unlock the achievement, A Star is Born. Back on the main quest, we managed to track down one of the minister's guards and convince him to give us his key into the manor. Finishing up some side quests now, we take a break to finish up the Sublight quest line, and so the whole thing here is aliens or something. It doesn't really matter, but it does unlock us the achievement Sublight to the end. Next on the list, we finally have everything together to finish up Parvati's side quest. This is the one I saved for last, and we do some excellent spying mission on Parvati and Yunlei's date, and after that we have a conversation with Parvati, and it's a very nice conversation. We get some more insight into what she was thinking and her relationship. This is a really good mission, really enjoyed this one. But after we finish that conversation, we unlock the achievement All for One. We change our gear up to be a full set of items produced by Spacer's Choice to earn the achievement Not the Best Choice, and then we put on some one-off fancy clothes to get the achievement Well Dressed unlocked as well. Then we unlock the achievement Short Circuit for killing robots with electrical damage. Now it's time for us to pose as FedEx to break into the Minister's Manor. Inside the Minister's Manor, we find that Minister Clark has been placed on house arrest by other members of the government who have been working to completely take it over from him. So he gives us the instructions to break into the government headquarters and find out what's really going on. Our quest log is so empty here, it really feels like we're coming up on the end of the game, so now feels like a good time to dip into those 2 DLC missions we have to take on. I decided to start with the DLC Peril on Gorgon first. We only have the 2 DLCs to get through, so we have a classic setup here. We're called to the mansion of Wilhelmina Ambrose, who's going to be giving us our main mission for this DLC, and basically her mother was a big exec at Spacer's Choice, but the project all went wrong, and now we need to explore Gorgon to figure out what happened, and we need to recover her mother's journal. So we touch down on Gorgon, and basically same old, planet is completely empty except for various scavengers we'll find out around the area, and a bunch of marauders and animals as well. The main tasks of this DLC are basically tracking down various scientists that were heads of their department, and then figuring out how to get the passcode to enter their building, and there's 3 scientists, 3 buildings, and eventually they will lead to getting that journal we need. I stumble across the body of Lucky Montoya, the guy who invited us here, and earn the achievement Lucky Stiff. As I get into the first building, we find that in classic noir fashion, we have a mysterious figure who is watching us and trying to prevent us from accessing this journal and all of our other goals. And yeah, I wonder who that'll be. After I left that building, I attacked a Canid and leveled up to level 30 and earned the achievement level 30, shocker. And we don't have to wait too long for the next achievement after that because we level our lockpick up to rank 100 and earn the achievement skilled. After that little encounter, we do a little bit more of the story here, tracking down some more of the scientists. We're at 2 out of 3 now, and then we get some more vague threats from the mysterious figure, but what else is new? Eventually I managed to track down our final scientist, Dr. Jasper Lowe, and he actually gives us a really cool quest where we go up on top of his building and we take a really high elevator and there's lightning striking and we need to fight through enemies and activate this terminal thing. And then he gives us a recording of his voice, and it was actually really fun. Back on the ground, we earn the achievement Special PET benefits for tracking down 3 DLC exclusive weapons. And then we use the voice recording from Dr. Jasper Lowe to get into his office. While in his office, we earn the achievement Good Listener for finding 20 of the audio logs that are hidden around the map. And once I make it to the top of his office, I can release the lock to the final building. But like the main story, this game also has a couple different branching endings, so we're going to do a little bit of a save scum here, and we're going for the hardest and rarest one first. The first step to this alternate ending is actually to return to Wilhelmina Ambrose's mansion and kill her before we actually collect her mother's journal. When I return to the ship, I have an incoming call from a guy named Lucian, who just so happens to be looking for that same journal that Wilhelmina wanted, so now we've got a new person to bring it to. Now I make my way to the final building of this DLC and fight through an absolute load of enemies to get all the way up to the top, where we can collect the journal and earn the achievement Synthesize This. But we're not quite done yet because we get one more brush with the mysterious figure before the big reveal, where they tell us to run and this is our last chance. When I get back to the ship, we learn that the mysterious figure that's been chasing us this whole time is Olivia Ambrose, the mother who wrote the journal in the first place. So now we have a choice between Lucian or Olivia. While fighting my way through Olivia's defenses, I earn the achievement We All Fall Down for getting 100 enemies killed with plasma damage. Once I make it all the way down into Olivia's basement, we can take her out without too much trouble, and then we can turn on the reactor to earn the achievement Greenlight Protocol, exactly like Lucian wanted. So with Adrena Time being produced again and the Ambrose is out of the way, we can drop the journal off to Lucian's man in the city, and then we earn 2 achievements. One is the Postman, the rarest achievement in the game, and Peril on Gorgon. So that's the DLC completed, but we still have 2 more achievements. So we load back in, basically just do the other ending of what we were doing there, where we take out Lucian this time, we destroy the production of Adrena Time, and we earn the achievement NDA Protocol. Now I just have one more achievement in this DLC that I need to reload for. So we go back before we killed Wilhelmina, and now we have the reunion of mother and daughter, and we basically have the same results or options for results as we did when we were pairing mother against Lucian, except this time there is another option where we can actually convince them to work together, and both can live and both take the journal. So we need to venture out to Wilhelmina first, and then convince her to work with her mother, and then we explore out to Olivia's place where we went originally when we got the first ending, and then we get them to work together, we get them back in one place, and we earn the achievement Family Reunion, and it's all great, and that's the DLC done. I take the opportunity between DLCs to bang out some of the general achievements that are still lingering around, like well-balanced breakfast for eating different foods, getting a tactical time dilation stealth kill with a science weapon for the achievement Jack of All Trades, killing a woman named the Cartographer for the achievement The Cartographer. Actually didn't need to do this here, I would have gotten it later anyway, but I did it here, so whatever. And finally getting my 50th stealth kill for the achievement Never Seen. I actually came into this area to farm it because there's a lot you can get here, but I was only missing one, so quick enough. With those handful of achievements out of the way, I decide it's finally time to take on the last DLC, Murder on Eridanos. So basically the last DLC was about Spacer's Choice. This one is about Rizzo's. So the Rizzo's mascot is a very famous actress named Halcyon Helen, who on the day before the big reveal of a new product was murdered. So we need to go around this hotel resort type area and track down different clues about who killed her and why. I earned the first DLC achievement No Longer Clueless almost immediately with this handy new discrepancy analyzer that we get given on this DLC, which will help us track down clues, and it's basically just another AI companion. Once I finish up in the ballroom, I head up to my suite and get our first conversation with Administrator Ludovico. So this is the guy that brought us here to solve the murder, and basically he's just telling us that we need to go out and find the suspects and tell him who did it. Easy enough. Also, while exploring around, I get the achievement Patient N for killing 20 enemies with the in-array damage type. I also found another interesting thing while making my rounds around talking to people. It's that a lot of people seem to have these parasites growing out of their neck. And when you get far enough away from the main hotel building, you find that there are a lot of these people that have gone a little bit off the rails, maybe, and begin attacking you with the title Frenzied Host. Another mystery to figure out. While we haven't solved that mystery quite yet, we do manage to unlock the achievement Mad Scientist for killing an enemy inflicted with 4 science weapon effects, and this one I was really dreading. I'm very happy to have gotten it done here. I also discovered that someone's been slinking around taking out high-ranking members of Rizzo's around the resort. That's interesting. But I can't dwell on that for too long because before long I find my first suspect in the murder. Cedric Kincannon, this guy plays it really cool. He's got an answer to every question and a pretty solid alibi, so probably not him. I also happen to earn the achievement Put Out of Their Happiness for killing 50 enemies infected with the parasite in this level. I found my second suspect in the form of Spencer Woolrich. This guy's an old professional actor who has been losing some screen time to Halcyon Helen and could be a jealousy kill. That's possible. This guy could have done it, maybe. Our third suspect on the list is a guy named Black Hole Birdie. Now, this guy was Halcyon Helen's partner, and it really feels like he's not the one that did it, but we've got to, at the very least, consider him, because it kind of seemed like they were on the outs at the time of the murder. In this conversation, we also earn the achievement Mutt and Jeff for letting Ellie bully Black Hole Birdie a little bit, and we basically play good cop, bad cop, but it's pretty good, decent dialogue. We find our fourth and final suspect in the Prophet of Profitability, kind of an alternate medicine guru type. She admits to the murder, but she also really doesn't seem quite right. Once I've spoken to all 4 suspects, I return to my suite and go to talk to Administrator Ludovico. We earn the achievement Intero Totus for speaking to all 4 suspects before we make our official declaration, but I don't really know who did it. It feels kind of possible that anyone could have done it, but most likely they didn't. I ended up going with Spencer Woolrich because he seemed the most likely, but just as we're telling him this, Administrator Ludovico tells us that his alarm has been tripped and we need to get over to his office right away. As soon as I hear that news, I rush over to the administrator's office, and then we get the big reveal. The person that broke in was Halcyon Helen, but she died. That doesn't make any sense. We earn the achievement Live and Kicking for getting the big reveal here that Halcyon Helen was an actress played by twins, and the administrator had one twin killed, not realizing that there was a second because it's been a great kept secret, and now Halcyon Helen is out for revenge for her sister. While planning our next steps with Halcyon Helen, she gives us her gun, the Needler, which gives us the achievement Spectrum Needler Buddy for collecting 3 DLC exclusive weapons. So this DLC is kind of interesting. There actually aren't any ending related achievements, so we don't need to worry about reloading. We just have the choice of eliminating the virus or continuing to spread it. So we choose to eliminate it here, which will give us the achievement The Rock in the Hard Place, and then we will get to face off with our final foe, Administrator Ludovico, right after that. Then it was time for me to track down Ludovico in the flesh, and we see him here for the first time. But he seems to have a secret weapon called the Queen. But unfortunately for him, this Queen doesn't seem to like him so much. So she eats him, and then we go on to kill her. I completely ignored the special abilities of this room, I just missed it, and I earned the achievement You Selected Regicide. After that, we pretty much say our goodbyes to Cedric and Halcyon Helen, and then it's time for us to get back on our ship. Back on the ship, I tell Ada about the wild adventure we had, and that earns us the achievement Murder on Eridanos, and that's both DLCs done. All that's left to do is finish up the main story now. Back on Byzantium, I resume my corporate intrigue, needing to talk my way past a couple of people to get into the chairman's office. On the chairman's computer, we get the big reveal. The colony is essentially out of food, and so the board is going to be placing a lot of people in cryosleep, just like on the Hope. So we obviously need to stop that, and after learning about that, we earn the achievement The Audience Gasps. Now with the chairman's keycard in hand, I can sneak into their top secret lab and steal the chemical that Phineas needs to resurrect all of the members of the Hope, but unfortunately there are a couple of casualties as we see in the lab. With chemical in hand, I return back to the doctor's lab, and we begin to come up with our final plan. So this would be our final chance to betray the Doctor and switch to the board side, but we're not doing that on our first playthrough. Basically, we come up with the idea to go to the Hope and use Ada's skip drive to teleport the Hope over near Phineas's lab, and then we can use that chemical that we stole to resurrect the greatest minds our colony has ever seen, and then we can use those people to begin to rebuild the system. So, easy enough, right? So the first part of this plan actually goes pretty well, better than most of our plans. I can finally travel over to the Hope, and I can use a disguise to make it through to the system's computer, and then we can have Ada initiate the process and skip the Hope over to the Doctor's lab. There's actually an alternate ending here that we'll be revisiting in a minute, but we don't do it here yet. And for doing that, we earn the achievement Lost and Found. But the plan kind of falls apart after that. We make it back to the Doctor's lab and find that he has been raided by the board. But fortunately for us, the Doctor had the sense to leave us a note as well as a key to break into the maximum security prison to break him out. Oh yeah, it's prison raid time. Before I travel to the final planet of the game, Tartarus, we get a point of no return screen, which is a pretty good sign that this is actually going to be the end coming up here. Once I land on Tartarus, I earn the achievement Hard Time, and now it's time to fight our way through that prison and get back the Doctor. And fight we will, but fortunately we're not actually doing it alone. We get a lot of help from the various groups that we've helped out through moving through this game, including the people on the Groundbreaker, the groups MSI in the Iconoclast, Sublight. This is great. As we fight through, we have various groups of people popping out, and I really love this part. I'm a big sucker for this kind of big reunion moment at the end. Once we reach the top of the prison, we get a video message from Sophia Akande. This is essentially your Phineas if you side with the board in the game, but she tells us that she's set up a big boss fight for us, and so we got to get through that first. But unfortunately for Sophia, all modern mechanicals know is eat hot chip and get disabled by 90 level hack, so we don't actually have to do this fight at all. One fight we do have to do is the fight with Sophia, but that doesn't take too long to accomplish. Then the only thing left on my agenda for this first playthrough is to go past Sophia, rescue Phineas, and then we're basically at the end game here. We agree with him that we'll help him revive the colonists and try to revive the colony without the oversight of the board. And we're basically, we're skipping to the future now. We unlock the achievement, The Outer Worlds, for beating the game on any difficulty. And now we're at the credits. So we get kind of a overview of where a lot of people are after the events of the game. We get an overview of a lot of those groups that we helped out, where our companions have ended up, and finally that we do manage to get the colonists revived and start working on the process for a better future, but unfortunately Phineas passes away shortly after that. But this is the game over, so now it's time to start going back and cleaning up the other achievements. The first achievement I'm going to clean up is the alternate side to that first choice we made in Edgewater. It ends with us going around killing a bunch of robots and eventually earning the achievement Ludwig Was Right. After that, I went around a couple different planets, killing some high-ranking and named individuals to get my negative reputation up with 3 different factions, which will eventually allow us to earn the achievement Destroyer of Worlds, but we did have to take out quite a few people before we could let that happen. I never really used the weapon upgrade table in the main story of this game, so I have to use it 30 times here to earn another achievement. I also need to use the game's healing item about 200 more times to hit 300 total and earn the achievement Health Insurance. After that, I finish up the full board side playthrough of my game, where we get the achievement Mightier Than the Sword for basically siding with the board at every turn. We go with Edgewater over the Dissidents, and we side with Sophia over Phineas. So now there's only one more achievement we can get in our first playthrough, and this one's actually a pretty fun one. If you have a low enough intelligence character, you get a dumb option when attempting to skip the Hope, and you can manage to accidentally skip the Hope directly into the sun if you choose to do it yourself instead of letting Ada, your computer, do it. So by doing that, we earn the achievement Sunburn, and this is a pretty funny alternate ending to the game. Now I need to restart the game in Supernova difficulty. We only have 2 achievements left, and they're both related to finishing the game on different difficulties. There is a really good guide on YouTube that I'm going to link in the description of this video that you can use to get through Supernova yourself very fast and earn both of the achievements, Hard and Supernova, for finishing the game on both of those difficulties. And that's it. We went all the way through the game, we rescued Phineas, and there we are. That is game over, 68 achievements out of 68 done. So how did we do? We beat the Outer Worlds Spacer's Choice Edition in 43.3 hours according to Steam. So that's pretty good. On howlongtobeat.com, the average time to beat is listed between 43 and 88 hours. And I would say that makes a pretty good amount of sense. Normally when I play through games, I don't look at the achievements beforehand, but with these big games, I kind of like to have an idea of what I'm getting myself into, and that usually helps to speed up the process for me. So as far as actual story, plot related stuff, I actually thought this game was pretty good. In the initial trailer for this game, there was a little blurb that said from the original creators of Fallout New Vegas, and I think that kind of hurt this game in the public's eyes, honestly. People were expecting this to be Fallout New Vegas, but in space, and it's not that. I've played Fallout New Vegas, and I would say that that's probably a little bit better than this, but for what this is, this was a great game. I didn't really have any bugs to speak of. The story made sense, at least from a high up level, maybe individual basis, maybe not, but I enjoyed this a lot. There are a couple things that I wish it had, like that stealth sequence that I mentioned earlier on that I was expecting but never really got. The whole disguise thing kind of wasn't super useful, but it made sense at least. And another complaint that I commonly have with these kinds of games is that they don't really know how to do boss fights. Getting to the end of the game, prepared for that big boss fight, and then being able to hack 90 my way through it and not do the fight is kind of weird, but you know, that's I guess how they wanted to do it. You can take a passive option if you want, which is cool, I guess. But this game did do a lot of things right. I really enjoyed that final combat sequence, breaking into the prison with all of the allies that you've made throughout the game. I do like a lot of the choice-based narrative stuff, even though, you know, a lot of the time it was pretty black and white. This is the good choice and this is the bad choice. But that's okay, I think. And I think this game is big enough that everyone can kind of find something that they like in it. You could definitely tell me that you didn't like Parvati's side story at all, but you really loved Vicar Max's, and I could believe that. But that's just not my experience that I had in playing the game. So my basic final thoughts, you know, 40 to 80 hours is kind of a lot to put into a game, but these were pretty easy achievements to get, though they were time consuming for some of them. But a lot of them are tied to the story and then just stuff that you'll get passively through normal play. But I really enjoyed this. I will definitely be checking out Outer Worlds 2 when it comes out in, you know, however long. It was announced a couple years ago, so hopefully somewhat soon as of recording this, but who knows, probably not this year, I would think. But yeah, I really enjoyed that game, and I hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope you'll join me for the next one. Maybe like and subscribe to get invited to that next video. And yeah, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope you join me for the next one. See ya!